And one thing that I focused on this year is the Notice and Note strategy by Colleen Beers. And I've had my students for 2 years now, and so last year we introduced these, and we focused on mainly excerpts and practicing these and seeing how they help my students with close reading and how it helps them be more involved with the text. Well, this year, despite COVID and pandemic and all the interruptions, we decided to take it a step further, and we did a lesson or a series of lessons where we looked at excerpts from Hatchet, and we were focusing on standard Literacy Standard 3 about how conflict and setting and character all work together, how they all work together to reveal things about the character. So we went back and talked about the plot diagram, which I told them they had learned many years ago, but we took it a step further and we investigated how the signposts, how they fit on the plot diagram. So we mapped it out, and then we decided where each passage went in the plot diagram, and then we looked for patterns to see which signposts we were seeing in each passage. So they noticed things like at the climax, they noticed some aha moments. And right before that, they may have noticed some words of the wiser. And then, so they were actually able to see that the signposts are not just an assignment that Ms. Burkhead has us do to annotate on our paper, that how they actually help us figure out conflicts and how they figure out the theme. We talked about how the words of the wiser could show the theme to us. So I think they really made a connection when they were able to see the connection between the actual signposts and the plot diagram and how these helped reveal the change in our character. This year in my 7th grade ELA class, we have partnered, the Washington County has partnered with C3WP with the Kentucky Writing Project. And our at-school learning, we have spent a lot of time using these strategies. And one thing that we did with our 3rd round about the dollar stores is we did jigsaw, and this was when we were hybrid. So one thing that's kind of been a barrier for us, not having kids here, all kids every day. So we attempted to do a jigsaw with my students here at school and my students at home. And it worked fairly well. There were a few kinks along the way as far as the technology part, but it worked well. We just had the students here join a Google Meet with the students at home, and they each had the copy of their article, and they actually did some jigsaws. And then what they did is they went through and they pulled evidence from each of the articles, and we posted on the emerging issues, and we have these around the room, and the students had to pick their most compelling evidence. They had to put which text it came from and actually which paragraph it was in, so that once we did our gallery walk, other students could walk around and decide if they wanted to use some of this evidence, and they knew exactly where to go to get it. Another thing that we did with the writing project is we focused on kernel essays. And we didn't do this until this 3rd round, but one thing that I had my kids do is I gave them Post-its and a manila folder, and they had to decide which kernel essay they were going to use. And on their Post-its, if they wanted to begin with like an overview of the text as their introduction, they had to actually write on this sticky note, overview of the text and where they were getting that evidence, text 3, paragraph, whatever. And then this one was, then here was their problem, which was a nuanced claim, evidence supporting my view, that was from text 2. Then they went into some counter argument, so they had to label that, what other people think, more evidence, and then a call to action. And they struggled with this at first because they felt like they had to follow that particular kernel essay. And I said, you can make up your own. And the reason we did this is they could manipulate, like they might not want to use their counter argument until here. So we attempted to do the 2x2 talk. I didn't get to do that with all my kids, but with those who were able to do it, this helped because, like I said, they could manipulate this and flip it around and create their own kernel essay. And then finally, we did use the using sources tool, and I have my kids highlight the parts of that, like their claim, their evidence, their sources. And what I noticed this third round is they wanted to do it as they were drafting. The second round, I guess I had them go back and do it. And this time, as they were drafting, as I was watching them, I noticed some kids were automatically highlighting their claim. And so I felt that was them taking some ownership of their writing, and it kind of kept them focused. So I was pleased to see that they did that without me even prompting them to do that.
Okay, so I attended a training through a provider, CCLD, on academic discourse. The training was called Talk the Talk, where several in our district were able to collaborate in the process of academic discourse. We learned specifically the importance of academic discourse, how it can impact our classroom and student achievement, and strategies that we can use to boost academic discourse in our classrooms. During this training, we were provided with a variety of different strategies, two of those being Flipgrid and Padlet, and how we can still have academic discourse even through technology. And so those were very important because during the pandemic, when we were on NTI, it was a good way that the students could have these conversations when they normally would not be able to. We also, after the training, I also did some research specific to science and found some different strategies and different tools to use in my science classroom, where I used some STEM, they were called STEM teaching tools on academic discourse, and a different strategy that's called Talk Moves, that's all about like hand signals and things like that. And I found that that really helped my 6th grade students. That helped them determine what type of thought that they wanted to interject in the conversation, whether they wanted to agree or disagree or clarify or needed support for that conversation. And so they would do a specific hand signal, and that would also give them some sentence stems that would help them formulate their thought. And then we also researched specifically some ideas around what type of questioning would lead to a specific type of conversation. And so knowing how to formulate and develop that discussion from a teacher standpoint as to what type of student thinking that you wanted to reveal through the conversations.
But
I had past experiences with them.
But I still think it's gonna go in a straight line because it might curve a little, but it's gonna go straight. Because if it goes in a big curve, then
There's nothing to make it curve.
if there isn't, it's just gonna bounce off the thing that they made, and it's gonna go straight.
Allowing the students that opportunity to talk with their peers while still maintaining our social distance and making sure that we're all staying healthy at school. Other barrier has been that previously my students did not really know how to have these type of conversations, the academic discourse, and they would often talk over one another. They wouldn't want to listen and hear everybody's voice in the classroom. And so all of these strategies that I've implemented in my classroom have helped them to be able to see how everybody's voice is important and to give everybody a chance to have their voice heard.